Hi guys, I'm Beth, and I'm the Executive Director of the Family Recovery Foundation, and you are watching our Fix Your Family Module 5. This is our third conversation on codependency, and I'm here with Anthony. Say hi, Anthony.
Hello.
Anthony's always with me, helping me get this, what we believe to be some valuable content to families who are in need. So if you love someone who struggles with addiction or mental health, these videos are for you. And you can find all these videos on our YouTube channel. You can go to our website and find more resources. This content today has a lot of heart behind it for you. Just to let you know, we just prayed for you and bringing back to our attention that there's a lot of families out there that have a lot of questions and are in a lot of needs. So I bring this content to you today in hopes that you'll get a deeper sense of why maybe your codependent behaviors have been affecting you as deeply as they have. So we're going to spend about a handful of minutes just understanding a little bit of the nuances of the brain. You may have a heart and a desire to change your behaviors. You may want to do things different. You may want to stop reacting and start responding. You may want to stop the perseverating thought process. You may want to change your life in essence. And as much as you have these deep desires to do that, I'm gonna maybe shed some light on why, as much as you have the desires, it's been so difficult. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that as much as addiction and mental health can really have can create a maladapted brain for the addict, for the alcoholic, for those struggling through mental health, it's important to understand that a lot of times the family member's brain also can become maladapted through the chronic stress and the chronic overwhelm, chronic relapse, the trauma, the gaslighting, all of those kinds of things that happen in the disease of addiction, the family disease, the addict's behavior, and how it affects the family. It's important to understand that our brains on the family side also become affected. So if you go to Module 5 and look at the worksheet, you can, like I said, you can find it on our website. You may want to read a little bit through the worksheet, Codependency in the Brain. So did you know that codependency can affect your memory? Did you know that the cerebral cortex can be affected? Did you know that when you are constantly triggered, that there are areas in your brain that become overactive? And did you know that when you're in situations and relationships that have chronic stress, did you know that your body responds to that neuroplasticity in the brain, those overactive thinking patterns? And did you know when the brain starts to become overactive, the body gets affected? And when the body gets affected, you might start feeling very uneasy and inflamed and maybe not sleeping well. And the brain becomes very maladapted and affects a lot of our comings and our goings. So there's memory issues that can happen. You might feel consistently emotionally dysregulated. That's important to understand. It may be a Tuesday and nothing's going on in your life. There's no issue with your qualifier, and your body may be in a constant state of fight or flight. Your brain might have had the same thought for so long. I wonder if he's okay. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if he's going to get better. I wonder if he's going to come back from treatment, and the same thing's going to happen. And you might get stuck on that thought process. And the brain actually can embed that thought, and it can start to loop itself so chronically that the body actually responds to that. And then the adrenaline starts to kick in. And it's just Tuesday and nothing's happening. But the body feels like it's back in a state of trauma. Well, that's important to know, because going back to our desires, like I said, you might have a desire to change this. You want to have a good Tuesday. You want to just taste your coffee, feel the sun on your face, maybe enjoy your children who are home, maybe go to the parent night or go watch your kid play soccer, but that brain is perseverating on your qualifier. And the body is stuck in adrenaline, and maybe you're not understanding why this is happening. Well, you should know that over the course of time, when we find ourselves in these situations over and over and over again, that the body becomes somewhat dependent on those chemicals. Did you know that? Did you know that the body can become addicted to adrenaline? You should know that. The codependent lifestyle a lot of times can create a body that becomes kind of somewhat dependent on that adrenaline. So the mind will start thinking the thoughts and then the body starts moving. And bottom line is we just don't feel good. And we might not feel good day after day after day, even when, this is what's so important, even when nothing's happening. That's the lack of the quality of life for the codependent. So we become somewhat emotionally dysregulated, and those negative thought loops just continue to go on. There's good news here, though. Just the awareness. If you can move into an observer self and just recognize, wow, I'm not feeling that good today. I wonder what thoughts are stemming from that. I wonder why my body's responding like this. I wonder why I'm feeling uneasy when there's really nothing negative that's happening around me. We can start to be aware of that neuroplasticity and be aware of those thought processes. And as we've taught in some of the other modules, coming back to our breath, being aware of the thought, and then what can we do? Did you know that we can pick a more pleasant thought? We can move into gratitude. And it does take time. It took us time to get our brain stuck in these embedded negative thoughts about our lives, about our qualifiers, about the alcoholism. But once we consistently start to become aware of those thoughts, take that breath and change the thought over the course of time, do you know what happens? This is really good news. The brain starts to change. So where the brain became somewhat, I would say, sick in its nature and stuck in the negative pattern, you should know that as much as it was able to get there, we can also partner together and shift it and get beautiful new thought processes operating back in our brain. So just because this is happening doesn't mean that we can't transform it and find our way, like I was saying, to more beautiful, pleasant thoughts. That's where our gratitude comes in. One of the reasons that a lot of us have found our way into these relationships that are somewhat codependent in nature is some of us grew up like this. Some of us grew up in homes where we were watching our caregivers, mom or dad, or whoever was raising us, in their codependent behaviors. So it's kind of all we ever knew. All we ever knew is walking on eggshells. Maybe you grew up in a home like that. So your sweet little beautiful baby brain, that toddler brain, the adolescent brain, has already been embedded in this type of, in this system, if you will. So that's important to recognize too. And again, this is where I like to show up with a lot of compassion and mercy for those of us who maybe it's all we've ever known. All we've ever known is a thought process that tends towards negative. So let's really remember that this process of creating a new brain, new thoughts, new life, new body, new feelings, it's just really, really, hear my heart here, it's really going to take some time. The foundation is here for the long run. We really are. We recognize that families need more than just maybe one meeting once a week. That's why these videos are here. That's why our program is here, to stand next to you, not just once a week or not just on a video, but every single day. As you know, we have programs that we can be talking every day in our Instagram platform where if you have questions and you just can't get out of that negative thinking pattern, you can be in a community of people in our Instagram group where we can support you through that. So we really recognize that it takes a lot of community to surround you, it takes a lot of education. And does it work? It does. I want to really encourage you that when we start to recognize that the thinking patterns in our brain that tend towards codependency are there, once that awareness takes place, we can really move into this consistent discipline of observing it and then shifting it into something more pleasant. And we'll help you do that. We really will. So back to the worksheet. I also want to talk a little bit about your prefrontal cortex. I call it the cerebral cortex, and how important that area is in terms of your decision making. So did you know that codependent behaviors, the chronic stress that we live in, can actually reduce activity in your cerebral cortex? That should move you a little bit. You need this part of your brain to make rational decisions. This is that beautiful part of the brain that I would call our executive function. It's all things rational. It knows, I always give this example when I'm teaching with addicts. The cerebral cortex tells you when the light is yellow to slow down or speed up. We need this. We need this thing to just operate our life. And what's really interesting about the cerebral cortex when it comes to stress is it reduces its activity. And I was thinking about this before we were going to come film today, and I was remembering some clients who I've worked with over the years. And I had one client in particular who we were talking about the chronic stress and chronic relapse in her home and just the pain of addiction that she was going through. And she came in pretty white and said, I was driving down the street, I went to turn right, and I got halfway up the street and I realized I was driving down the wrong side of the street into incoming traffic. That's the cerebral cortex, the brain fog. It can move us into somewhat of an unconscious state when we lack the activity level that we need. So our hearts go out to those of us who are dealing with that level of stress. That was that moment when I was in counseling with this client. It was an intervention that was needed. And isn't it interesting sometimes that we think that the addict needs the intervention, and they may. The foundation is here because maybe we needed an intervention to recognize that the overwhelm of the stress of the relationship with our qualifier, no judgment on them. We're remembering that we're bringing this recovery back to ourselves. We're grabbing the reins, the responsibility of our lives. And if we continue, here's the responsibility. If we continue to move in, God bless you. God bless you. If we continue to move in a direction where we're allowing this level of stress to continue, we're allowing ourselves to not have a healthy brain, a healthy body. If we're allowing the adrenaline to just continue and continue and continue, I would wonder if there's an opportunity here to take the reins of that and to start learning how to take responsibility for our thoughts, our body, our days, so that we can move into the life. You guys know I say this all the time, into the life we were intended to be living. We don't want to be driving down the wrong side of the street. We don't want to be losing our memory and our decision making, losing our impulse control. Having the inability, if we don't have our cerebral cortex, we don't have the ability to set healthy boundaries. We don't have the ability to emotionally regulate. We're always on fire, agitated, edgy, maybe not showing up for ourselves and our other family members in our best way. So we're kind of understanding here that this is more than just our heart space. This is more than just, I want to live a different life. We're learning here through this curriculum and this module that over the course of time, these situations are affecting us on a neurological level. Our cerebral cortex loses activity similarly to the addict. The addict's chronic relapse patterns, the addict's chronic use of controlled substances, did you know it does the same for them? So we want to take responsibility for our part and to live healthy. I know that's why you're here. I really do. I know that's why you're investing your time and energy into this program. And I really value that. I really do. And so does your family. I want you to hear that. So does your family. Your family values the work that you're putting in. Your qualifier does. Even if they're not telling you that, I know their heart. And it's a benefit for them as well. So just a couple more things really quick. When we're living in chronic adrenaline and cortisol dysregulation, did you know that our immune system gets suppressed? That we have increased inflammation. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's there to aid us. The adrenaline is there to aid us. The adrenaline is there in our body, God-given, to be there if someone's chasing us with a bat, if a bear is chasing us. It's not there for that Tuesday to be running through our body simply because we're having thoughts. So chronic adrenaline, did you know, has the potential to create chronic fatigue. Maybe you're feeling that. Maybe you're feeling lack of motivation, depression, chronic fatigue. Did you know that could be caused by inflammation and increased cortisol? Your adrenals can burn out from chronic stress. And did you know that when a person is consistently in these stressful situations, did you know a person then becomes even more sensitive to stress? You might start to feel like the lights are too bright, or your skin's kind of crawling from your clothes. Your central nervous system might be more activated than it used to be. There's also a dopamine dysregulation, and this means that our reward system, this is so important to recognize. Our dopamine can become tied to our qualifier. And what that means is we start to, the codependent in its essence, in its nature, can get tied to caretaking the addict. Isn't that interesting? The thing that we may desire to shift behavior in, maybe we have this thought of, I'm just so tired of having to go pick my qualifier up from the bar, or I'm just so tired of having to take extra care of the kids when my qualifier is not available. Did you know that our bodies can actually tie dopamine to the caretaking behavior? You really should pay attention to this. As much as you may want to stop that behavior, your body may tie the behavior of caretaking to dopamine. So when there's a need, when your qualifier calls you and has a need, did you know that dopamine could be tied to you running to the rescue? Now remember, we're not judging this at all. This process happens over time. So we're wanting to pay attention to how our biological state becomes affected by these behaviors, and our neurological thinking patterns shift and become affected by these behaviors. I think you're here to shift that. So the hope here is that we have a new awareness of how we've become affected by this complex relationship, how addiction, we're not talking about your qualifier right now, we're talking about addiction at its core. How addiction and untreated mental health and chronic relapse affects the family, that our brain becomes affected, our body becomes affected. The thing that we need in order to make the right decisions becomes affected. That our wellness in our body, our wholeness, feeling alive, feeling like we're thriving, we instead start to feel diminished and fatigued and depressed. I really encourage you to stay with our modules as we move through our codependency curriculum. We're going to teach you how to become the observer. And it's just, I really encourage you this next week or so to really start to watch your body. Can you start to watch the fatigue? Can you start to watch the chronic thinking patterns? Can you start to watch the moments where maybe you're not tasting your food or you're not sleeping well? And it's really a real nice, slow and steady start. We can start watching these behaviors without judgment and see if we can do a little personal assessment. Are these things showing up? Is our body activated? Are our thoughts stuck? And maybe we just start there. Can you start observing some of this? And then as you move through the modules, we'll continue to teach you how to shift those patterns. Because as I've been teaching, the consistent patterns, that's where our habits will be created. And then those habits, you know what they're going to do? They're going to create a whole new personality in you and in your family. And I really look forward to standing with you as you make these really powerful, brave decisions. So we'll see you at the next module. Bye, Anthony.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.